After 3 games about a funny bear and his other animal pals, what next? Well, if you're this bear franchise, you give up, but if you're this bear franchise, you never stop going. Yeah, FNAF sorta took the internet by storm. No matter where you went, people were talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, which was amazing for 2014 to 2015 I'm scared of FNAF thumbnails hyper. If you went somewhere horror games were being discussed, FNAF was inevitably going to be brought up at some point. So you know what that means? People hated it. After debatably peaking with the release of FNAF 3, the period of Florida sister location was the height of people despising this thing. Look, I get it, alright? It's a popular indie game, happens to the best of us. Say you like Friday Night Funkin' nowadays, you get checked into a mental ward, it's still happening. On top of that, large creators and other fans were starting to get sick of things by the time FNAF 4 made the rounds, which we'll talk a bit more about later. So, were they justified for throwing hate at FNAF during this point in the franchise? Well, the hate was justified, but the reasoning wasn't. Yeah, this is what I like to call the growing pain saga, because you can tell FNAF is trying to find its footing, try some new stuff, and see where the franchise is headed after its success, but man, it just starts to feel a little uncoordinated. A good deal of the games in this saga have quite a few problems, and while they can still get to some highs, they aren't as consistently solid as I found the original 3 to be. But before we talk about those, I have some cleanup work to do, particularly about some theories that were notable from the previous games that I somehow forgot to mention. Don't worry, this'll be quick. First off, the puppet being in FNAF 1. Sometimes in the right hall corner these posters will show up with the giant tears coming off the kids in the poster. Some people took this as the puppet's spirit being somewhere in the FNAF 1 location. This doesn't make that much sense to me, but what does make much more sense is some people pointing out the resemblance to the crying spirits of the children we saw in the minigames in FNAF 3. I actually like this connection a lot more. It's like the murdered children are trying to communicate with you in some way but can't quite manage, so you end up with this disturbing image on the walls, which is a much cooler idea than it just being the puppet. Next up, Foxy being a good guy. Admittedly, I can't really find the original theory, so I'm just going based on my memory of things, so please correct me if I'm wrong. From what I remember, since the other 3 animatronics get in your face, it was a bit weird how Foxy just kinda gives you a hello from the left doorway. And so some people thought Foxy wasn't actually out to kill you, and him running down the hallway is him coming to check up on you, with the loud sound from the jump scare causing you to have a heart attack and die. Yeah, this theory is pretty dumb, and even when I first heard it, I didn't buy it. I mean, come on, the security guard is on a Fox animatronic version of Life Alert, and this chump dies from a jarring loud sound that comes out of nowhere, meaning the FNAF 1 security guard would die if he heard a firework. And also, the whole thing is just objectively wrong, because the reason Foxy's jump scare is different is because he needs to seamlessly transition from running down the hall to killing you, so it'd look jarring if he got in your face immediately after if he only killed you after flicking up and down your monitor like the rest. Finally, the phone guy and the purple guy being the same person. I have no clue how I forgot about this one, considering it was a pretty dominant theory for a while there, and not without good reason, because there was quite a bit of evidence for this. Phone guy mentions in FNAF 2 that they don't like the puppet because it's always thinking, which would make sense since the purple guy's first victim possessed it. Which, yeah, the puppet being the first victim was heavily speculated about even back then. On top of that, in the minigame where he shows up randomly in FNAF 2, he seems to be holding a phone-like object to most people, which honestly doesn't really make that much sense to me. Why would he just be roaming around carrying a phone? But on the other hand, what else is he supposed to be carrying in this sprite? Unless Purple Guy has crab hands, the phone theory was the one that made most sense to people. On top of that, he was supposedly the only one who knew about the safe rooms containing the Springlock animatronics. Although, admittedly, this is the weakest piece of evidence for me. He was giving this information in his calls to anyone like us, so it's not that much of a stretch to believe that someone who worked there could have theoretically learned about this and gone on a murder spree. But, I don't know, I'm not Mr. Game Theorizer. So yeah, those were the major FNAF theories from games 1 to 3 that I missed out on in the video before. There are a bunch of others, but these were the only ones I thought it was important to mention, and the only ones I remember being prevalent. Just don't get mad I didn't talk about some obscure theory you liked. I don't want to hear about how you met your wife theorizing about the paper pals in FNAF 2, alright? So with that out of the way, following FNAF 3, we were set to get the final chapter. FNAF 3 wasn't the final chapter? Look, maybe it's just me, but the whole multiple endings thing coupled with the good ending seemingly saying the children's souls at peace through the mini-games and the final image you see, and the music making everything feel very final, I don't know. Part of me is happy FNAF kept going on, because I feel like there is some cool stuff that came out of the rest of the series. But at the same time, if it stopped at 3, it would have been a very good finale, and would have had a much better and more focused story than we ended up with, but don't worry, we'll get there. Either way, FNAF 4 was set to come out Halloween of 2015, but we know how this goes. Halloween became August, and then August became late July, goddamn dude. Also, fun fact, because of this, FNAF currently holds the world record for most video game sequels in a year, with 3 games following FNAF 1, which I first found out about from one of those video game-focused world record books. So, without further ado, let's get into our world record achiever, Five Nights at Freddy's 4. So right off the top, FNAF 4 is already coming in strong because it has some of the coolest and most memorable teasers in the series. This might be weird, but the Nightmare animatronics here almost look like stop-motion models or something. This is a weird comparison, but it kinda reminds me of that show Crashbox in a way, but like, fucked up. Like, I can see the Nightmares moving around like the animation in this show, especially Freddy. I hope at least a few people watching know what I'm talking about. The teasers showing the Nightmare variants of the Core 4 all ask the question of was it me, teasing that this game would finally reveal once and for all who did the Bite of 87. Every time I mention the Bite of 87 for this game, I involuntarily twitch a bit. We also get this teaser of a purple hat and a bow, and oh boy, now I get to fill my image brightening quota for the day. We get to see some text at the bottom right saying property of, a word starting with FR and another word ending with ER. Seeing as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza doesn't end with an ER, this was also teasing that some light was going to be shed on the elusive Fredbear's Family Diner. Which then leads into this giant bastard, with brightening the image showing a very hard to see or was it me on the left if you brighten the image. Also, we get this final teaser showing a plushie version of Springtrap. Oh great, I wonder what his name will be. This is probably one of my favorite teasers. It feels very foreboding and the lighting here feels very dreamlike, while still doing a good job of obscuring our little friend here. Maybe it resonates with me more because I've had dreams that don't look too far off from something like this, but overall, it's cool, I like it, and generally I think FNAF 4 still has my favorite teasers in the series. Right as you boot up the game, you get a sign that FNAF 4 isn't fucking around. While the earlier games had a basic menu that showed off your new threats up in your face, FNAF 4 takes a different approach. The color palette is only red with some black highlights, which is really visually striking, and we instead are overlooking this house with some vague silhouettes up front that you can just barely make out as the main animatronics. I feel this also works with FNAF 4's gameplay, since usually you don't really get to see the main animatronics unless they're shrouded in darkness or obliterating your face. That is, with the exception of Foxy, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Kind of impressive how FNAF 4 manages to have better atmosphere on this one menu screen than FNAF 2 had in its entire runtime. I'm sorry, I still really like 2. We also don't get thrown directly into Night 1, instead we get thrown into a minigame. Since we don't have phone guy calls, we instead get all our story through minigames, which now happen before each night. This means no more grinding for death minigames, thank God, and no more hunting for them either. They're counting down to a party, with this minigame having this crying kid being locked in his room by someone, and after banging on the door a bit, we eventually just give up and the minigame ends. Rough. So now we transition into the gameplay, and we'll be getting back to that story since I want to tackle the gameplay right now. So, unlike the previous games where you get to play as a security guard with a monitor that gives you constant eyes on the animatronics, doors to block them off, a flashlight that might as well be a giant-ass beacon, all while making like 5 cents every week, here you just play as a kid, some defenseless kid stuck in his own house, danger coming at him from every direction, and nothing but some flashlight in his ears to make sure he doesn't get mauled. Now, in concept, this is already scarier than the previous games, at least in my opinion, but what makes it scarier is the Nightmare animatronics. Holy goddamn, look at these things. While in some aspects you could see them as overkill, personally, in the context of a Nightmare, I think they work really well and have some cool designs. Although, that's kind of the problem. There's a theory that seems to suggest these guys are real. I know I was going to take it one game at a time, but I feel it's better to mention it now. One of the FNAF books mentions these types of animatronics that have discs that can cause you to hallucinate, and these guys were put here to make the kid freak out and not want to go to Freddy's, and these animatronics are all just a bunch of hallucinations in his own house. I hate this theory, dude. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of evidence that works with the animatronics merely being a product of this kid's nightmares that he's playing out here, and I think conceptually it works a lot better and is a lot less stupid for it to be a nightmare than a real scenario. So in terms of how the animatronics work, it's actually very similar to FNAF 1, in theory. Bonnie comes to the left door, Chica goes right, Foxy's toward the front, check on him routinely or die. The only one who's pretty different from his FNAF 1 incarnation is Freddy. He's behind you under the bed with these mini Freddys that the community called Freggles before it became their official name, will slowly get their way onto the bed. You gotta use your flashlight on them to make them run away, but if you wait too long, Freddy gets out of the bottom of the bed and kills you. I wish we could have had an animation where we see him jumping out of the bed, and it probably would have been awesome, but I also don't know if it would have been jarring or whatever for gameplay purposes. So what makes things more of a problem here in comparison to FNAF 1 then? Well, the doors are incapable of remaining closed unless you're actively holding them closed. On top of this, your methods of dealing with the animatronics are very, direct. For Bonnie and Chica, you need to run over the door and listen for breathing. If there's nothing there, hopefully, then you flash the light across the hall, which will either have nothing there or scare them off a bit. If you do hear something there, you gotta hold the door closed until you hear them go away. Remember when I talked about FNAF 2 and mentioned in passing how listening for audio cues would be a thing later in the series? Yeah, I was talking about FNAF 4. I know there's other examples of it in the series, but I was talking about FNAF 4. So pop those headphones on, turn your volume loud, shut the hell up, and keep those ears open. Maybe if you listen good enough, you won't have to deal with the inevitable 300 decibel loud jump scare. The thing, though, is to listen for breathing, you're gonna need to know how to distinguish the breathing from the random sounds and ambience, or else death is only a few seconds away. This was so much of a problem that Scott had to patch the game to make the breathing more audible. Also, make sure not to jump the gun, because sometimes they might wait a bit before they decide to breathe, and if you make a decision before it's time, well, you get it. Bonnie and Chica are your main threats and really play into that feeling FNAF 1 had of your anxiety being your worst enemy. Having to listen out for a small sound not only makes me extremely stressed out that I might misjudge and make the wrong decision, but also obviously makes it scarier because you don't want these things to jump out when you're listening closely. I mean, do you know how loud these jump scares are? Check it. 3, 2, 1. Damn it. But here's the funny part. Once I got it down, it wasn't so bad, which I imagine is why Foxy was thrown in, because he completely throws a wrench into that. Before this, my strategy was just go to Bonnie, check, go back, check on Freddy, check Chica, go back, and check Freddy again, and repeat until the night is completed. Foxy requires you to allocate extra time that you more than likely don't have, meaning something's gotta give, and if you don't give the correct thing, then it's game over, buddy. Foxy starts out in the hallway like Bonnie and Chica, but for some reason unlike those two, when he gets past the hall, he instead guns for your closet instead of your face. From there, he actually has a structure similar to FNAF 1, where you need to do routine checkups, and he even has multiple phases to dictate how close he is to leaving his hideaway. If he's a plushie, you're good. If he's standing, you're probably still good. If he's crouched down, he's getting close. Him peeking his head out is probably where you'll find him, where you check up on him again, and it means he is really considering murdering you. And if he does a little jump at you when you get to the closet, this means possible demise was in your hands and you decided to juggle with it. Despite that, he still manages to be unpredictable, mainly concerning when he actually gets in your room, because sometimes he'd never show up until like 4 AM, and sometimes he'd show up practically as soon as the night begins, and now things just got a whole lot harder. Seeing as time spent on Freddy now needs to be saved for Foxy, you are in a lot more danger of Freddy spawning, and yeah, a lot of the times I checked on him, he had 3 Freggles on the bed already. The worst part, though, is sometimes you can do it all perfectly and still fail to either Bonnie or Chica because you didn't do it fast enough and they got impatient outside the door. I'm really mixed on this because it has those elements of resource management that were prevalent in the previous games. Just now, instead of managing power, music boxes, or computer problems, you have to manage time spent on each threat. It's a really good idea, I just feel like the other games gave you a lot more room to breathe. FNAF 1 doesn't really get started in my opinion until like night 3. FNAF 2 had the puppet's music box wind down faster as the nights went on, giving you a good deal of time to figure out how to work it into your routine. And FNAF 3 allowed you to plan for when errors occurred by giving them consistent set times when they would fail on you. FNAF 4, though, throws you into Night 3 with a similar difficulty scale to what most games would put on Night 5, and sometimes, even if you play your cards right, depending on the current predicament, like how many Freckles are on the bed, how close Foxy is to leaving the closet, and how far along Bonnie and Chica are to the door, you could be put in a situation you can't win. To go back to FNAF 2 again, it might seem similar to how you have to manage the puppet and Foxy in that game to how you manage Freddy and Foxy in this game. The main difference, though, is how they were far less demanding. Foxy needed you to shine the light a couple times to stave him off, which took like 2 seconds. Meanwhile, his appearance in 4 makes you close the closet for a lot longer than I feel should be required, and all I'm thinking holding these doors closed is how many precious seconds I'm wasting here. Meanwhile, the puppet allowed a lot more wiggle room for how long you could let the thing wind down for until you were dead, as opposed to Freddy, who especially on later nights, will not hesitate to jump on you. On one hand, this makes the game extremely stressful, which is great, because I'm not ashamed to admit, FNAF 4 is one of 2 games in the series that can still scare me, but at the same time it walks a fine line between panic-induced stress test and an aggravating time management simulator. Anyway, another new part of gameplay is fun with Plush Trap. It's a minigame you play between nights where you wait a bit to hear him running around and try to flash the light to stop him on the X on the floor. Losing means you just move on, but winning means you start at 2 AM of the next night, which unfortunately I never got to use because I suck at this minigame. I can never get the timing down for this. I get paranoid and flash too often, and so he never moves, and then I overcorrect and barely flash and lose the minigame, so I guess I should just be thankful it's not required. Alright, so now I want to move into the story because unfortunately FNAF 4 is where things start to get a little messy. It starts out really innocently too, and I actually like some of the ideas present here. On night 2, you finally get out of your room, and after a bit of walking around, you find your brother, who likes to jump scare you while wearing the head of your Foxy plushie. He was also seen robbing a gas station more at 11. Next, for night 3, you're actually in a Freddy's location, or more accurately, judging by the golden Freddy's and Bonnies, this is the place, Fredbear's Family Diner. The kid's scared of the robots, though, and when trying to leave the place, a guy in a mascot costume blocks the way and he starts crying. You really feel bad for the kid, seems like he's having a shitty life and generally just wants to be left alone, but things are about to get a whole lot worse. Each time a minigame plays, you get this countdown of the party, and once you finally get out of the restaurant and talk to people, you find out it's your party. Having a birthday party in the place you're most afraid of, this will go over well. And the people here are not helping the situation at all. You got this lanky bastard laughing at you having multiple panic attacks in a row. This guy doesn't even acknowledge it's your birthday party for a minute. And this girl tells you rumors about kids being stuffed inside the robot suits. Okay then. In fact, all around, this kid doesn't really have any friends. All he's got is this little Fredbear plush that's the only thing around here that treats me with some sense of human decency. Tomorrow's another day, indeed. In fact, it's the day. We got 1 day till the party. You get jump scared by your brother again because he's a special kind of asshole. Head to bed, let's get this over with. Alright, night 5. This'll be great. Night 4 was hard enough. Huh. Been quiet here tonight, ain't it? What in the hell was that? You didn't think FNAF had boss fights, did you? Well, now we get to square off with the big man himself. The culmination of all your fears. He's not another nightmare, he's the nightmare. This thing is set up so perfectly. Ironically, it feels less comforting that all the murder bots that should be around every corner aren't there anymore, and it gives you just enough time to realize the house is emptier than usual before you see him. Nightmare Fredbear. No other guys clogging up the room space, it's just you versus him. 1v1, giant hellish bear robot against small child. I wonder who wins this one. Fredboy's got an interesting difficulty curve because a lot of his trouble comes from figuring out how he works, but once you actually do get down to it, it's not that bad. Took me a couple tries to figure out a strategy, which was particularly hard because I couldn't really find any consistent strategies online, but here's what worked for me. I constantly bounce between the left and right doors. You want to flash him really quick and then close the door if he's there, because if you keep the light on him too long, he will not hesitate to jump you. If he laughs, he's on the bed or in the closet. Allegedly, he can sometimes laugh with a footstep sound, which is supposed to fake you out since he'll still be in the hallway, but that never happened to me. In a weird way, I actually found managing this to be easier than managing the 4 robots and the other knights. Just takes a bit to figure out. Anyway, it's now the day of the party, and this is the scene. The brother and his friends try to mess with our kids, so they lift him up and put him in Fredbear's mouth, and after a short bit, I love how this scene was done. The way the ambient sounds completely stop when the animatronic bites down, how it lingers on the scene for a bit, it's honestly kinda haunting. So yeah, that's the Bike of 87 revealed, except no it isn't, cause check this out, the TV plays a little show titled Fredbear and Friends, and it's dated 1983. Why would you do this? Now we're just supposed to have 2 different bites, one in 83 and 87? Originally I thought, you know what, maybe it wasn't supposed to be taken this way. You know reruns exist, maybe it's supposed to be when Fredbear's was created. Except the Night 5 calling FNAF 2 mentions how Fredbear's Family Diner was closed for a while, and seeing as 2 takes place in 1987, this means that yes, there are 2 different scenarios where an animatronic chomped on someone's head. Not only does this overcomplicate things for literally no reason, it also retroactively makes the Bite of 87 pretty inconsequential, which is extremely lame. All the significance 87 has now is that it caused animatronics to not be able to free roam anymore, like it said in the FNAF 1 call, which means even less now than it did before. The thing is, I'm positive Scott wanted the game to take place in 1987, because the source code had 87s written all over it, and some hidden 87s were in some of the teasers. Unfortunately though, he forgot he set up a timeline where it is impossible for Fredbear's to be around for the Bike of 87, so in the middle of writing the story, he switched all the dates and now we have this mess. I know that's speculation, but if that's not what happened, I'd be genuinely surprised, because why hype up the game with 87 plastered all over it if it wouldn't mean anything to the final game? This, I feel, marks the beginning of FNAF including random plot details that only serve to contradict previous plot details which then need to be rectified in later games. A while back, Daco got to do an interview with Scott Cawthon after beating Ultimate Custom Night's 50/20 mode, and there were a few interesting things mentioned, but there are 2 things in particular I want to highlight. Firstly, Scott mentioned how he originally intended to end FNAF at the 3rd game, and I feel like that's really apparent from the narrative of each game and from how some things were laid out.
Seemed like it was like the end of the franchise. Was this meant to be the final game?
I think when I was making that game, in my mind, that was the end of a trilogy.
Yeah.
You know, I think in my mind, the story was going to be 3 games. And
I already mentioned towards the start of the FNAF 4 section here that I felt like FNAF 3's ending had a sense of finality to it, but on top of that, the story of the original trilogy was laid out very deliberately. The story of each game felt like it was put in a place to where you could figure out what happened here, who the killer was, the effect it had on the restaurant chain, culminating in FNAF 3, where we find out what happened to the murderer behind it all, and end it in a literal blaze of glory. Which begs the question, why would the series continue when even Scott intended for it to end at Game 3?
Some, alternate life may have left the series alone at 3. People were not happy with the jump scare, and it's kind of as simple as that. People weren't happy with the jump scare of Springtrap, and that really bothered me. And so then that kind of, in my mind, that wouldn't let the series rest in a way, because I wanted to make another entry that was really, really scary again.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yup, all of this was spurred because FNAF 3's jump scares weren't that good. Look, I'm not gonna pretend Springtrap walking up to ask you directions to the bathroom is scary, but that is a really shallow reason to continue a story past where it needed to go. All it does is highlight how FNAF from 4 onward is basically a concluded story that now has to figure out where to go next, which perfectly explains why every game from this point forward is not as narratively satisfying. Anyway, that's not to say I hate everything about FNAF 4's story, cause just as an example, there's one Easter egg in here that ties into the narrative really well in a small and subtle way that isn't thrown in your face. You see these things next to your bed like pills and IV and flowers, and it's a small Easter egg to allude to the fact that this nightmare is happening to the kid in the hospital after being bit. That's genuinely really cool. So after Night 5, we obviously unlock Night 6, which basically combines Nights 4 and 5. For 12 to 3 AM, you fight off the Core 4, and the final 2-hour sprint, Fredbear shows up again. And honestly, Night 6 is where everything started to click for me, and I started having a lot of fun. FNAF 4 can be just as fun as the original 3 games, I just find you have to put in more effort to have that fun. I think it's funny FNAF 2 is considered the hard one in the series when 4 requires a lot more out of you. After beating Night 6, you have your extras menu, which is about what you would expect after FNAF 3. You get these really cool in-development shots of how each animatronic was created, I like this type of stuff. You get the jump scares and some stills of the enemies in the game. Wonder what that is. However, every FNAF game has to have a difficult challenge, and here we have Nightmare Mode. But unlike 3, this is a lot more like a 420 mode. I think this one might be the most difficult of all the past games though, mainly because of Freddy being way more eager to kill you, which throws off how you manage basically everything, and sometimes you just gotta do shit with 3 Freckles on the bed. Look, life ain't fair sometimes. Just like Night 6, we get the 4 AM switcheroo, but this time instead of Fredbear, we get Nightmare. I don't remember if this was something I read or even something I heard in a game theory, but I remember hearing somewhere that Nightmare is symbolic of death trying to claim our little dude in his hospital bed, and I don't know how correct this is, and it really doesn't mean anything if it's real, but either way, that would be really cool and fit in super well with the story, on top of giving context to our big death bear here. Completing Nightmare gives us this box, 2 locks, no way of opening it, and after a while some text appears saying some things are best left forgotten for now. Completing Nightmare gives you access to the rest of the extras menu. We got our cheats coming back, there's Fast Nights from 3, a map of the area showing you where Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Fredbear are at all times, and lastly a danger indicator for when someone is at the door, which is kinda lame and redundant given the map does the exact same thing but better. We also unlock challenges. 3 of the 4 slightly modify the pre-existing guys. Mag Freddy makes Freddy really want to kill you, Insta Foxy makes Foxy be in the closet as soon as the night starts, and All Nightmare, from what I understand, basically makes the night start with you pitted against Nightmare like a harder Night 5. The other challenge though, Jesus, it's blind mode. What do you think it does? Hope you enjoy staring at a black screen and remembering what position you're in so you don't get confused. God forbid your selection of where you want to run to gets messed up, then you'll have no clue where you are. If you beat some nights in blind mode, give yourself a big pat on the back, cause this whole deal was hard enough for me with eyes intact. That's all for the normal game stuff, but not all for FNAF 4 actually, as around when the game was originally supposed to come out, we got some seasonally appropriate Halloween DLC, baby. It's the same game, but with the animatronics swapped out for some new ones, which I think is fun. Foxy got replaced with Nightmare Mangle. Look, I know I talked some trash about Mangle in the previous video, but separated from story context, I love this feral piece of shit. Plush Trap got replaced with Nightmare Balloon Boy, who had a really cool teaser image. Should really get his hands checked out though. And the coolest one, instead of Nightmare, we got Nightmarian, who might even be more unsettling than Nightmare himself. Especially in that teaser image with them, like, that's awesome. For Bonnie and Chica though, here's some fiery versions of them. Don't get me wrong guys, I love me some fire, explosions, lava, that stuff is always cool to me. But the Jacko variants of these characters are really meh. I think it would have been cool if we got some other character swaps, like how about instead of Jacko Bonnie, we got Nightmare Springtrap, and instead of Jacko Chica, we got, I don't know, a Nightmare version of Withered or Toy Chica. Really, sky's the limit, especially since Scott himself said the Halloween DLC was completely non-canon. Except for Nightmare BB. You just couldn't hold yourself back, could you, Scotty boy? You just had to make the Nightmare version of Balloon Boy canon, huh? This really stands out to me as FNAF sorta spiraling, cause correct me if I'm wrong, but did we ever figure out the significance to him being canon in the first place? What's the deal? Before we close out, I want to mention a theory that was big around when FNAF 4 made the rounds, that being the highly contentious dream theory. The deal with this one is that everything that happens in FNAF is a dream of the crying kid, with the only real events being the FNAF 4 minigames. Look, I know it's lame, I know that saying it's all a dream is a giant cop-out, but this was one of my favorite theories and still is for how it tied everything up neatly and how many things made sense from this lens. Why can't you leave the office in the first 3 games? Well, it's a nightmare scenario, of course you'd be trapped in this office, and is the only way that coming back 5 nights in a row would make sense. And, thinking about it a bit more, it's the only way that typing numbers into panels on the wall in FNAF 3 would make any sense at all. Still annoyed by that. It's even explained by some additional information Scott gave. See, during a game theory livestream where Mr. Matthew Patthew, along with some other YouTubers notable in the FNAF scene, tried for what was probably his 15th time at that point to figure out the game's story for good, the website Scott used for posting these teasers started updating with some vague hints that seemed like he was trying to push them into taking the dream theory pill. The 3 lines we got were 4 games, 1 story, what is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child, and most bafflingly, in the FNAF 4 minigame, why would Tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? So let's work through these all one at a time. The easiest one, 4 games, 1 story. Well, all of these games are happening in the kid's nightmares. The 1 story is the story happening in his head that connects all 4 of these games. Next, what is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. Most people thought this to be when in the minigame the kid sees one of the employees putting on a mascot costume, aided by a guy who looks very similar to our purple murderer. Spurred on by the rumors circulating about kids being stuffed into robots, that's what our kid thinks he sees when it's actually just a guy getting dressed for the job, which is why the purple guy and the person helping the other employee put on the suit look very similar. Finally, in the FNAF 4 minigame, why would Tiny Toy Chica be missing her beak? This is the weirdest out of the hints while at the same time being the most crucial. In the FNAF 4 minigame, there's a girl playing with some figures of our 3 animatronics. A detail that a lot of people just glossed over before this was how when Toy Chica went on the attack in FNAF 2, she lost her beak for some reason. Well, here the toys are based on these figurines. This even explains Mangle, who's in complete shambles because the Mangle toys also broke into pieces. And would also explain why Chica loses her beak in the first place, seeing as the figure itself is missing its beak as well. Then we get to the FNAF 1 animatronics, which are based on the plushies the kid owns, which ties into the first game's robots having more fur and whatnot on them than the animatronics in the other games. Likewise, Foxy is out of order in the first game because the plushie is missing his head. One of my favorite connections is the Shadow animatronics from FNAF 2, which in this theory would be based on the shadows of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie that the kid is too scared to walk past in one of the minigames. I like how it even explains the 2 new Nightmare animatronics in the Halloween DLC that aren't canon, those being Nightmare Mangle and Nightmarian. They can't be canon because the animatronics in 1 through 3 are based on things he's seen, be it plushies, toys, etc. Meanwhile, the FNAF 4 Nightmares are based on the animatronics that actually freak him out, which is why Nightmare Fredbear is the final boss here. Under this theory, there are no Mangle or puppet animatronics to freak him out, so there can't be nightmare versions of them. Do you see how well it comes together? And I'm pretty sure Scott intended this, considering in a Steam post, he aired some hesitancy of making the story come together. In particular, his line saying, would the community accept the story, and perhaps some things are best left forgotten forever, which, I don't care about the context, that's a hard line. This is perfectly understandable if Dream Theory was supposed to be the intended story, because it makes sense if he was worried to conclude things by saying it was all a dream, due to how the community who spent nearly a year theorizing would react to it. In some respects, FNAF 4 really was meant to be the final chapter if this is true, but since it kept going on, that means that now the story continuing onward had to be retrofigured onto a completely different story, in a kinda haphazard way depending on the game you're talking about. But so, move onward it did, and so we gotta keep on moving forward too. This time it'd take us a little bit longer to get to the next entry, and this one was going to be a pretty big departure, which leads us into Five Nights at Freddy's what the fuck? How does one begin tackling FNAF World? Oh yeah, I know how. If you suffer from sensory overload, your eyes start to hurt after seeing bright flashing colors, or God forbid you have epilepsy, just skip to when I start talking about Sister Location, for the love of God. This is the definition of black sheep of the franchise. You want to talk about games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts or Zelda 2 being the black sheeps of their series. At least they resemble and even play similarly at points to the rest of their games. How about going from sit and survive horror franchise to RPG seemingly designed for children?
And by the looks of it, very, unique, special children.
Yeah, it was a mess. I remember the teasers for this game after FNAF 4 came out. We got this very nice thank you image featuring every animatronic from the series, but then a little bit passed. What happened to that endo? He's joking, right? Okay, I don't think he's joking. The first thing we saw were the new designs for this game, and already a line was crossed. Remember how Nightmare looked in FNAF 4? A completely black entity highlighted in gold and red, with parts of him translucent, giving him a ghostly feel, while also letting you see the robotic parts underneath. Genuinely one of the most badass designs from the series to me. Here's how he looks in FNAF World. I don't need to make a joke here, it speaks for itself. Anyway, why delay any further? Let's take the plunge together. You can choose to find characters as you play or go with a fixed party through the entire game, but I want the authentic FNAF World experience, damn it, so we're playing Adventure. Next, normal or hard. Now, hard mode is for the real men, okay? So at least I'll feel joy knowing the babies that play on normal mode can actually beat the game. That part isn't a joke. Character select. Yeah, a couple of the selection menus glitch out for me and I have no clue why and couldn't make it stop, so just don't look at it. Our mentor? Partner? Tour guide? The guy who tells us where to go is our buddy Fredbear. It seems not all is well in this unnamed hell dimension, so we're gonna go questing to fix it. So this is our game. We can navigate through the overworld like any real-life RPG, but sometimes to progress we need to go into these glitch realms, which is basically like if whenever you went down a pipe in a Mario game, you needed to go through a really easy maze first. That's it though, the rest of the game is battling, which is supremely easy. This game is too simple for its own good. You're able to make a party of 8 split into 4 teams you swap between, with your first 8 characters being the 4 originals and the 4 toys. Just in the character select, you see multiple issues crop up, and no, I'm not talking about the spasm happening on the right here. I'm talking about how 1, the game doesn't tell you what moves of each character do until you're in a fight, and 2, I don't have the most diverse lineup in RPGs, but FNAF World is probably the most unbalanced out of that repertoire. The base roster is already messy in terms of balance, because Freddy and Chica are basically direct upgrades to their toy counterparts, because Chica's a dedicated healer, which doesn't mean anything in this game because healing is worthless, and Freddy has better attacking moves as well as the move Birthday that increases all stats for all party members for a short time. Usually I just shaft both versions of Freddy and Chica at Team 2, because the Bonnies and the Foxies are just a lot better at damage output. The movesets given to each person can make or break that character. Depending on what moves they have, they could either be the best character in the game or objectively worthless. Characters like Marionette and the Paper Pals are basically tied to the gimmick of giving you random characters on your team for that fight, which, yeah, if you're lucky you can get something really good out of it, but there's an equal chance it'll give you characters that can't hold their own. Phantom Freddy isn't that bad, but all his moves are centered around debuffing enemies, which isn't that strong on its own and is best accompanied with an attacking move, so that you can do something once you've exhausted all your debuffs. As it stands, when you use all your moves once with Phantom Freddy, he's basically useless for 2 turns. It's not like a lot of this matters anyway, because speaking of things being objective, some characters are straight up better than others, like a no contest. The last few characters you can get in this game include the Nightmares from FNAF 4, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, and the Endoskeletons, and these guys will be what your team is made up of by the time you get to the end if you want to survive. Say you want to bring the Withered animatronics or even the base roster to the end of the game if you really like their moveset, well, you can't, because even if you level them up a lot, a character like Nightmare Foxy will always deal more damage easier than a character like Balloon Boy would, which makes sense, but also really limits your options. Because of this, I ran into my first situation of the playthrough, beating this snowman. See, because running into characters is luck-based, because we didn't have enough predicaments going on here, when I got to this snowman, I didn't really have any new characters to use, which meant I had to wander around for a bit until someone new showed up. This got me 2 new characters, Phantom Mangle and Phantom Freddy, which was thankfully enough to blast me through the snowman. Not too long after, I was even able to get some better characters, like Shadow Freddy, Withered Bonnie, and JJ. Yeah, unrelated, but the character roster in this game is weird. Like, JJ and the Shadows make sense, I guess, even if they are Easter egg characters, but then there's the Paper Pals and Funtime Foxy, who, in this game, is just a rebuilt version of Mangle, because this was a while before Sister Location. And there's even Endo Plush, who on his loading screen literally says he was made because of character quota. I'd be worried that joking about him would anger the Endo Plush fans, but I'm not sure there are any. After beating the snowman, this leads directly into another problem. This game makes it confusing where to go at times. Like, right after the boss you see this cave that would be the way forward, but no, you have to go right, which then leads you to one of the glitchy trees to get to the next area. Which I guess makes things consistent that you get to each new area by using one of the glitchy objects, but then why put the cave here where it grabbed your attention first? I had a similar problem immediately after in this ocean area that is way too open, because you have this portal down here that takes you to a blocked off area, an area to the top right you can't go to. Swimming around too long increases your chance of getting jumped by the sea beast that, if you aren't ready, will kill you. And then the forest to the left. This has the same problem as the snow area where you want to go to the cave, but no, you have to go to the glitchy tree. Fantastic. The worst part of this confusion is that without it, you blow past these areas because there's nothing to really engage with in the overworld beyond shops and boxes with tokens and chips in them. Oh yeah, I should probably get into that. You have other equipables that are basically essential as you get later into the game. There's 2 flavors, chips and bites. First, for the bites, you buy them from this Lolbit character who's just a Funtime Foxy recolor, and there's only a couple ones to choose from and even less that are actually useful. You should really only be using the B's for continuous damage and the I's for big damage on bosses, although later I swapped out the B's for the UFOs since they're basically a direct upgrade with better damage and fire rate. The only other bite I used was the Grim Reapers, which just have a chance to instantly kill an enemy, but I swapped them out because they don't do it that frequently, are hella expensive, and those eyes were just a lot more useful. There's technically a free 5th bite you can get that doesn't take up a slot, that being the Pearl. You get it from one of 2 Lolbit shops. The other shop is just some defense upgrades, but the one for the Pearl is this fishing minigame, which is a real bastard to get right. Sometimes if you're unlucky, the fish will just line up in a way where you can't get the Pearl, so seeing as you need to grab the thing 5 times to use it, who in their right mind would go through that? I got the Pearl, it took like 20 minutes. The chips are modifiers that do a number of things. I had chips equipped that increase my stats for the whole battle, though later on I got some other ones, notably this Mimic Ball being permanently at the bottom, which makes each attack you do go twice, which is pretty much mandatory for good damage output. I got this chip that makes pizzas constantly roll in, because if it makes shit die faster, it's good with me. And I also got this shield that I'll discuss a bit later. The thing with the Mimic Ball and Shield chips, though, is that they're contained in red boxes that you can only get if you find special objects that, when rubbed up on, let you go out of bounds. This creates multiple problems, because 1, the game doesn't tell you what objects let you clip out of bounds. 2, even if you do go out of bounds, there will still be some invisible walls, so you need to go out of bounds with the exact object that'll lead you where you want to go. And 3, the out of bounds area pits you against some really difficult late game enemies, where you need to get lucky, run away quick enough if you're trying to get them as early as I was. Otherwise, you are going to die. What about my 4th chip? Well, that leads us into my next predicament. See, my team was created with a strategy I formed deliberately in a long manner of, 10 seconds, where I used variations of the moves Unscrew and Escape Key that have a chance to insta-kill enemies, because I found it better than killing them the normal way. This is a problem because the chip I wanted was hidden behind a boss fight, and bosses, while still able to be unscrewed, are far less likely to fall for it, to where it just isn't worth it. So I kinda rammed my head against it until I won, which to be fair only took 3 tries, but still, I just barely made it because I was not able to deal a good enough amount of damage to this guy. This is because I got really unlucky with new character spawns, so I didn't have anyone super good to take him on with, which only really solidified the problems with character appearances being random. Ironically, the whole situation was created because the chip I wanted to get was the one that helped me get characters faster, because things are funny that way. So after that debacle, I realized that, I'm right at the end of the game, because you just sort of show up at the end, it comes very suddenly. I decided to grind until I got some new guys. This took over half an hour, and yes, I was able to get a good deal of characters, but god, that should not be required just for me to survive. And I only did this preparation because I knew how bad the bosses coming up were gonna be. Just running back and forth until someone showed up, and the best part is, I found out characters can still appear if you run away, so naturally I equipped the chip that makes you run away quicker, just to speed up the process as much as possible, and it still took forever. So anyway, you show up at the fun house, and you can't progress yet because there's gates. So now you have to go through this maze, which mazes are a theme in this game, since when you actually have to go into the caves I mentioned earlier, you can't see further than an inch in front of you, which means I walk around with the map up, which just makes for the most exciting gameplay visually. This is an actual maze though, meaning no map cheating, and each time you enter a new area, it has just the most wonderful visual effects. And after enough time of wandering through this hellhole, you finally find the boss. This guy's guarding a key that you get after beating him, and now you just have to find the exit, which is easier said than done since you have to walk through this wall to get out. Have I mentioned this game doesn't tell you where you're going? Now you backtrack to random areas to hit buttons that deactivate the barriers. Honestly, at this point I was just going through the motions, and it feels like the game was too, because the Funhouse starts using recolored models for new enemies. White Rabbit is Shadow Bonnie, Red Bear is Shadow Freddy, Tangle is Mangle, they didn't even try with that one. Also, in the middle of the maze, I grinded for characters again, and after 20 minutes of grinding and still missing 3 characters, I said, you know what, I'm just wasting my time here, I know how to change save data on FNAF games, I've earned the right. Either way, we get to fight the owl robot now, which is where I would like to mention the neon wall chip I bypassed talking about earlier. It's pretty good, reduces the damage your party takes by half, but it's pretty much a requirement for this boss fight because it has a move that sends flying orbs at you that will murder your party members easily, which you don't need because it's hard enough without it. Sure, you can use the neon wall move on one of the endoskeleton characters, but alternatively I could be filling that slot with somebody actually useful. Now though, we got the final preparation, which is basically figuring out the order I want my party to be in and getting the auto gift boxes chipped so that way I start the fight with extra lives. Speaking of which, even the final party has some imbalance to it, since Springtrap is basically a worse Spring Bonnie, Nightmare is better than Nightmare Fredbear, regular Fredbear just sucks, he does not fit in with the rest of these guys, and Shadow Bonnie only has one useful move, thus making them the gift box bitch. Anyway, we're fighting Scott Cawthon now, it's funnier if I don't explain, and he's really hard, see, because he has this move that basically insta-kills your entire team, so you need to spam gift boxes if Team 1 dies to get them back up, and then you spam gift boxes on Team 1 to keep them alive, while they throw every move they have at him. Also, this is one of the moments in the game that epitomizes how messy everything looks, because it's basically flashing colors at you constantly. Like, how do you explain this to someone who doesn't know what a FNAF World is? This fight's pretty much just a giant war of attrition that ends after a bit of wiggling away at him, and then the game just ends. I mean, it's appropriate, you killed the storyteller as he put it, but yeah, that's all folks. But we're not done yet, cause FNAF 4 isn't the only one that got a Halloween update, cause FNAF World got some free DLC too. FNAF 3 and 6 didn't get DLC, but World did, that's rough. You go into this house and meet a guy on his desk who tells you to beat his games and then get back to him, so I guess we got a new job now. I like how Fredbear's taking it pretty hard how the game wasn't received too well, and wonders why you're even still playing. The writing in this game wasn't good or bad, it was just kinda there, but this got a chuckle out of me. This Halloween realm has 4 different minigames to play based on other random video games that when completed award you with different characters. First one I tackled was Foxy.exe, based on the funny guy from FNF Don't Kill Me Please. It's pretty simple, you just walk and avoid PNGs of Freddy and cats, I guess. Was a bit of a letdown, Foxy didn't even fly at me and explode my stomach. Next I made the mistake of going after Chica's Magic Rainbow, which is based on unfair Kaizo games, you know, like Cat Mario. Yup, this took a while. It lives up to the Kaizo name of being bullshit and wanting you dead. This section with the butterflies pissed me off, the rainbow lasers right before the stakes that come instantly up from the ground, and the final sprint with the stakes and the eyeballs, it was a nightmare. Worst part is if you die too many times, the rainbow gets pissed off and just kills you. Also, the rainbow is voiced by Jimmy Neutron's voice actor, which is nuts. Foxy Fighters is a Star Fox thing. The only notable part of this is that each character has voice acting. Foxy literally sounds like Fox.
Souldozer! I should have known it was you! You're not even in the right game!
JJ sounds a lot older than I expected for some reason.
Let's kick this party into high gear!
Nightmare Chica sounds...
Sorry I'm late to the party. Fashionably late, of course.
Whoa, hello. And Toy Chica sounds like the death of the human race.
You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you?
Please stop. Finally, there's FNAF 57 Freddy in Space, which is easily the most complex one as it's a mini Metroid type deal, where we fight Saga again, just this time his head is in a jar. You gotta roam around to find these cupcakes that power you up, which is really needed for the final room, which makes it all the more heartbreaking. To unlock one of the characters, you need to beat this without collecting any cupcakes. Once you've completed all the minigames and gotten through all their special challenges, I just looked up a guide, you'll have the full team of Halloween characters. Obviously, the full team includes the Halloween characters from FNAF 4's DLC, but for some reason Nightmare Mangle was excluded. What's up with that? There's some other guys as well, though. We have the purple guy, which is neat. Scott himself, comes with Fourth Wall 2, thank God. And also Chipper from the game that dominoed into this madness. The last character is this coffee guy from another one of Scott's games, The Desolate Hope. I haven't heard anybody talk about this game, and despite having it installed on Steam, I haven't touched it, so we'll move right along. Before we tackle the true final boss, I want to cover the other endings you can get. Yeah, this game has a surprising number of different endings, and you can see them all on the title screen represented by these trophies. The Owl and Scott trophies you get for beating the game, technically the Owl is for normal and Scott is for hard, but as I mentioned before, playing on normal is an objective waste of time. Next there's the level 4 ending. Early in the game, Fredbear warns you that if you go into glitch areas, never go 4 floors down, but if you ignore him and find the area where you can go down that extra floor, then congratulations, you get to hang out in Purgatory with your new fishing buddy. For the universe end, if you put Fredbear in slot 1 of your party and then go talk to Fredbear on the map, you'll cause reality to break because you can't have 2 Fredbears in the same place, and so they explode. Next, there's the clock ending. If you wait at the end of each of Fredbear's dialogues, he'll freak out a little bit and start telling you to find clocks. Once you do, you play these short micro games that represent the pieces of Gang FNAF 3's good ending for some reason. I mean, you got the balloon boy, the buttons, the cupcakes, the numbers, it's all the same. I don't know the significance of that, but it's interesting at least. This is the most annoying ending to get because nothing tells you to wait at the end of each time you talk to him, and if you miss a clock and then spawn the next one, the clock that you missed is permanently gone and the only way to get the ending is to make a new save file. So, guess who messed up and had to go back through the game because he missed a clock? Yeah, I actually used fixed party mode for this, where you basically get to select your party at the start of the game and then you only use that party for the whole thing. One problem with this, though, is you can't get the true ending because the Halloween characters are always locked in fixed party mode, and once you get to the end of the game, and especially the true final boss, you just can't hit hard enough to win these fights, so that's fun. I mean, at least it was able to carry me through the clock ending, but still, why would you lock out the Halloween characters like that? Anyway, the ending itself ain't anything special either, it's just some vague lines from a figure in the dark. Also figured I'd slide this in here. You can get this fan that sits next to your party if you get every character, which is pretty useful. Shoots a ton of lasers every once in a while for some good damage. The final ending you can get is the Chipper's Revenge ending, where you find this off-screen area and you fight this metal version of Chipper. I waited until I got the Halloween characters just to speed things up, because it's basically a war of attrition, which is sort of the problem with any boss that tries to be difficult in this game, because with the game this simple, you can't really make high difficulty be interesting in any capacity. After a while of pressing buttons, he drops and says he feels disgraced Freddy's got all the love, while Chipper's was left to die, which, yeah buddy, that sucks, but I don't think the lumber business was going as far as the funny bear did. Anyway, on to the final area. What's this got for me? Joy. Yup, another maze in the dark, and this time you can't use the map to help you. And another problem, you gotta use this move Nightmaring and Nightmare BB have called Bubble Breath, cause without it your health will continuously drain, and if the fight runs long, it'll eventually need to be used again, which is pretty annoying. After a while of walking around, you finally get to this purple mass, except no, the rainbow's back actually. This boss is pretty bad. I died like 5 times here, and if you lose at the fight, you have to go through the entire maze again. Basically, she never directly attacks you, instead you have a fixed time limit before she insta-kills everyone. There's also these mini rainbows that pretty much murder your team as soon as it connects with one of them. You can use Neon Wall 2 with coffee to instantly kill them as they get to the barrier, and other moves like Fourth Wall can also wipe them completely. But other moves like BB's Balloons 2 that lasts a while, especially when the Mimic Ball goes off, doesn't affect them, and if you can't get a move off, then that's one of your party members dead. This is the reason why it's probably impossible to beat this boss with a fixed party, because even the Halloween characters barely have enough damage to take out the rainbow in time. Eventually I just realized, hey, this is a game where I got through half of it exclusively using luck-based moves, so I just kinda spammed Jacobani and Purple Guy's slasher move that has a 1 in 10 chance to deal 100,000 damage. Finally, the rainbow goes down and you're back in the desk guy's room. He's talking about how he's made something horrible. And then she shows up.
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
Look, for all of World's faults, because I don't know if you could tell, I did not enjoy that debacle, it ended things with a bang. The reveal of Circus Baby is one of the most memorable and best moments in the series for me, and it came from FNAF World. How'd that happen? It showed some confidence in the next step of FNAF, building up the next antagonist in a similar manner to Springtrap. This got me hyped. Sister Location has the distinction of being the first FNAF game I was actually around for the pre-release hype. I finally got through most of the prior games, now I just have to wait for the true FNAF 5. I'll give them credit, while they aren't FNAF 4 level, Sister Location had some pretty good teasers. They showed off these weird new designs with a lot of newcomers and not too many returning faces. I mean, there was a new Freddy and Foxy, but Bonnie got demoted to a hand puppet and Chica's nowhere to be found. Even some other random characters like Balloon Boy and the Puppet, who've become mainstays in the series since FNAF 2, were nowhere to be seen. I mean, some people thought this mess of wires was a new version of the puppet, and I guess for the time it made sense, but even then this guy was a bit weirder. Even got jump scared by a cancelled Duga Leaks teaser, which was actually referring to the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World being cancelled due to gas leaks. Very cheeky, Scott. The game's trailer seemed to show something very different to the standard FNAF gameplay. Some even thought it would be a free roam title. It seemed like this would be the biggest departure from the standard series yet, weird RPG fever dream excluded. Then the game came out, and back then, I mean, I didn't really think much of the game and didn't play it much. I don't remember why. I know I at least got through the whole thing and even beat that boss fight against Engard, but while I still hadn't played Sister Location, I would still frequently go back to 1, 2, 3, and even FNAF World, which, fun fact, did you know World is my most played FNAF game with 40 hours? What was I smoking back then? Nowadays, though, after going back through it, hate to say it, but this is probably my least favorite so far, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm including FNAF World in that statement. I did not care for this one. Sister Location feels the most out of these like it wants to take a new direction, but for every step forward it tries to take, it takes like 2 or 3 steps back. I feel it's important to mention that this is where the books start getting more involved with the games, although thankfully they aren't too important for this game, which is good since I'm saving all the books for a later video, so I'll try my best to only touch on them when necessary. Sister Location is interesting for opening up with a cutscene for the first time, and generally this game is gonna have a good bit more voice acting than your average FNAF game. I actually don't think the voice acting was that bad, which is especially good in the case of Hand Unit and Baby, since you'll be hearing from them for the whole game. But I also really like the performances given by Funtime Freddy and Ballora, which makes it weird how Funtime Foxy didn't get a voice here. They also mention the man who built Baby, that being Mr. Afton, which is immediately where the books get involved. Because thanks to them, we know Afton to be the name of Purple Guy himself, which we'll get back around to in a little bit. Small detail I want to slide in here, but I really like the title music for Sister Location. It's a really good track that manages to be foreboding and sinister, while also being a cool song to listen to in its own bubble. I don't really talk about music in these games, excluding FNAF 3's good ending theme, mainly because there isn't much to talk about, but while we're on it, I might as well mention that FNAF 3 also had a really good title theme, and FNAF World had some really good tracks as well, particularly in the battle against Scott. Let's also talk about designs, because when Scott said Circus Babies, he really meant it because the clowns are in town. I have a good deal of problems with them in multiple areas. First off, this game goes back to FNAF 1 and 2 where these things are actually supposed to be performing for people, and this time I do not see it in the slightest, especially with the whole face opening up thing. We'll talk more about this later, but the justification for this is that the robots are basically murder machines made to lure kids, but I feel if a kid saw this, the last place they'd be is standing right next to them. Also, given these sleek, futuristic-looking designs as well as the environments in the game, when do you think this takes place? Looking at face value, you'd probably place this at the end of the timeline, but 5 is actually one of the earliest games, which can be seen from the fact that Afton is alive and well, placing this at least before FNAF 3. Well, yes, it's well before FNAF 3. In fact, it is the second earliest game in the timeline, only being beaten out by FNAF 4. How'd that happen? Maybe this seems a bit weird, but with something like a restaurant franchise with animatronic performers, the designs of the characters themselves very much influences and matters in the story context, which only makes it more apparent that 5's animatronics just don't fit in from an in-universe and timeline standpoint. I also don't really jive with these designs that much in general, mainly with the weird lines going across them, which I only think works in the case of Freddy and Foxy. With the more human designs, it just doesn't look that great. As for the other guys, the mini arenas are alright. I think they work as sort of minions for Ballora, but the Biddy Babs, ugh. I joke about really trashing on Balloon Boy, but I actually don't like these things. They're just pretty forgettable, don't have that appealing of a design, I don't really understand why Baby needs these minions in the first place, and are easily in the bottom tier of FNAF designs when I eventually do remember them. Into the actual game itself on Night 1. This is similar to FNAF 3 where Night 1 just shows you around the place, but unlike FNAF 3, I feel like there's no point, since in 3 it was meant to have you figure out all the systems before you were thrown into the thick of it. Sister Location has you doing something different on each night, and for stuff like remembering to put the animatronics on stage each night, that's basically an interactive cutscene since they make you do it before you move on. Originally, the idea I had for what the game would be like would be you crawling to multiple rooms to deal with each animatronic's specific problem. Kinda like how you have to balance fending off the FNAF 4 animatronics, just instead you'd be moving to different rooms, which maybe would have needed tweaking beyond that simple idea, but I think it would have been cool. Kinda like that Baby's Nightmare Circus fan game if any of you out there played that one. Instead though, we get what's basically a night-by-night marathon of FNAF minigames. Also on this night, we get to see how the game's a bit more humorous in areas, from the hand unit's quips to the vampire romance you'll watch when you go home for the night. I feel like a lot of people attribute Sister Location to when the games got kiddified, but if anything, I feel like the more kiddie elements are pretty out of place for what's otherwise a relatively normal FNAF game, which makes me wonder what they were going for when including them. Speaking of which, I forgot to talk about the story. So you're a new employee at Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, where these animatronics are rented out to perform at parties, while in the meantime they spend their time in this storage facility. After that, we find out Baby has some form of sentience and she's able to talk to you freely, which we'll get back to as well, but other than that, the story completely disappears until the final night. Funnily enough, it feels like the first game if I had to compare it to anything. As I said earlier, the game has you doing new tasks each night, with the real thing you have to survive coming at the start of night 2. The power gets shut off, like that thing from a video game series, and Baby suggests hiding under the table. But under the table we have Biddy Babs and you have to survive them. I don't know why we have to survive them, considering they're so small I could just kick them over and leave, but regardless. Already the first game is broken. You're supposed to hold this metal sheet closed, and from there they'll start looking at you through the holes, which you need to avoid, otherwise they'll start pulling the sheet off. They'll pull the sheet anyway twice though, but this doesn't matter because if you want to, just close off the sheet and hold it. You'll never shine the light on them, and the 2 times they do pull it, as long as you're good about holding it closed, they'll never be able to get you. This turns it from a stressful game of keep away using your mouse to a game where you wait here for a bit holding the sheet closed until you're allowed to leave. Next you have to crawl through Ballora Gallery, which is simple. You just listen out for when Ballora is near, and if you hear nothing, crawl forward. If you do hear something, then wait a bit. Also, this door is really deceptive because I swear the closer you get to it, the further away it appears to be. Then we get to the Breaker Room. This is the only game in the entire runtime that I can confidently say I enjoy. And it happens in night 2, it's all downhill from here. You need to get the power back up in multiple areas of the building, all the while Funtime Freddy is right in front of you. You have to flick up the monitor similar to the cameras to recharge the power, and a detail I really like is the danger meter. It tells you how close Funtime Freddy is to killing you, although I would have preferred if he had different phases like FNAF 1 Foxy instead. Anyway, the reason I like it is that when you have the monitor up, the meter is automatically maxed out, so you can't tell how close to dying you are. If he's getting close to you, you press the spacebar to play an audio cue to make him back off, but you can only play this audio cue if you are not in the monitor. The reason I like it is that it has the same form of management and risk-reward like other FNAF games do, since you need to make sure Freddy doesn't kill you, but you also need to get the power up, and the power decreases each second you're not holding it down. So do you play it safe and check on him frequently while making it take longer, or do you make it go faster but increase the risk of you dying? It's cool. I only have 2 gripes, those being that it's pretty easy and that if you die here you have to crawl through Ballora Gallery again. Lack of checkpoints is sort of a running theme in this game, but we'll get there. Oh yeah, also that's the last time you go against Ballora in the whole game, so new character, meet Trash Bin. For night 3, we have to make a run through Funtime Auditorium with Funtime Foxy in the room. This is basically the same as Ballora, just with a new spin, where instead of listening for audio, you flash the beacon to see if Foxy is there, which means walking a bit, flashing to see if they're there, and then waiting a bit if they are, rinse and repeat. It takes a while, is boring, also pretty uninteresting seeing as you're staring at a black screen for most of it, and it's also really easy. This is also the last time you go against Funtime Foxy, they're dropping like flies. You do parts and service on Funtime Freddy, it's mostly you pressing buttons on him and that's it. There's this final part with the Bonnie Ham puppet where you need to press the button on her chest, but she moves around, so you have to kind of lure her out of the dark. It's a little inconsistent feeling, and after I won I still don't feel like I know what I did. Also, if you die here, you have to make the run through Funtime Auditorium again, and this is also the last time we see Funtime Freddy for the rest of the game. Isn't this fun? Anyway, you leave and end the night with a forced Foxy jump scare. I said my piece on the jump scares in the last video, and this is on thin ice. So, Night 4. This is the infamous one. I think Night 4 is the only gameplay-related thing anyone even remembers from this game, and that's mostly just because it wasn't designed the best. You got stuck in the joint after hours, and Baby protects you, in the most technical sense, by putting you in a spring-lock suit, so death is only an ass scratch away. Though this protection doesn't even work that good, because almost immediately you're accosted by mini-Renas, which I'll give them credit look really creepy in this lighting, looks cool. So you have to keep the spring locks of the suit wound up while mini-Renas mess with you. If you see them climbing on the suit, you need to shake them off, which loosens the locks. I don't really know what the point of the mini-Renas in the front are, they're just kinda there to mess with you, I guess. It's really simple and doesn't even last that long, but there's so many locks you need to keep track of, and just one of them goes off, you know what happens. This part actually got patched to be easier, and yeah, it only took me a couple of times, and if anything, I think Night 5 pissed me off more. Fuck Night 5. The worst part is it starts out really good. There were some mechanics here earlier, and oh, I don't think they made it. It's really creepy too, no stinger, no reaction from the hand unit guy, and we just continue on as normal. It's really good, which makes it sad it's the only cool and creepy thing they do with the atmosphere in this game. You go to parts and service again, but Foxy isn't in the auditorium, and this is where I gave up. You have to put this code into Baby's pin pack, but if you stop for 5 seconds you die, and if you accidentally hit the wrong number you die. I tried it over and over, and each time I'd go too slow because I was trying not to fuck it up, and the worst part is I actually got it on my first try, but then Baby instructs you to walk to the scooping room. I followed her directions perfectly, and the game still killed me. After that, I just couldn't do it because I was getting legitimately pissed off. So anyway, here's the funny FNAF guy being better at video games than me. I am really sorry. Once you do get to the scooping room, you see this new animatronic, you get scooped with the robot basically using you as a flesh suit, and the game ends. Wasn't that fun? For more clarification on our new robot buggy though, we need to get the super secret non-canon ending, where you first need to get a keycard through doing this minigame. Basically, you get the card and you give cupcakes to all the kids, and this will cause an ice cream to spawn at the end, that you then gotta deliver back to the start of the stage. At first it was kind of fun how you needed to ration out the cupcakes to give to the kids. If you want to get all of them, you even need to avoid certain pickups to completely exhaust what you have so that nothing goes to waste. I probably would have enjoyed it more if the time limit wasn't so strict that even on my successful runs I got back to the start with mere seconds to spare. If you do get there though, a kid goes to get some ice cream and gets gobbled up by Baby's grabby claw. So who's ready for a lore dump? In the opening, we see that Mr. Afton Purple guy is the one who made Baby. We know the fun times were made for capturing children, not just because of Baby's claw, but also because there's a blueprint you can find in the files for Funtime Freddy, where there's a compartment that looks as if it's currently containing a child inside. Next up, in between nights, there's a girl who repeatedly asks her father to go play with her, cause she was meant for the girl. It's not hard to piece together that this girl is Afton's daughter, and the thing made for her was Baby. She was probably told to stay away because Afton knew Baby would kill her if she was the only one near, which she does anyway and gets murderized. This causes Afton's daughter to possess Baby, as shown by the fact in the minigame Baby has blue eyes and the daughter has green eyes, and in the game Baby now just has green eyes. Caught up? Good, because now we use that keycard to get into this hidden room on Night 5, I'm still not doing it, which before we even get to that, to keep the lore train running, if you input 1983 in the pin pad, it shows pictures of the bed, the room, and the plush trap area from FNAF 4, and we can see Afton had cameras looking in the FNAF 4 house from the breaker room minigame with a layout similar to the house labeled Observation 1 and 2. too. Why would he be spying on this house? Well, duh, cause it's his house. Meaning he lives there, and judging how there was a random girl's room in the house, that was probably the room of the dead daughter, meaning the crying kid and the asshole Foxy brother are both his sons, and it's even implied that he was the one talking through the Fredbear plushie of the crying kid using the walkie-talkie. Let's go through these one at a time. First off, the daughter dying and possessing baby. That's good. It explains why she has so much more sentience than the other robots. The fun times being murder robots? Alright. I feel it's more interesting for them to be possessed and why I kill a night guard for looking like the guy that killed them, or thinking you're a criminal after being connected to a database because one of the criminals was a guard, which I think I forgot to mention about the toys last time, oopsie, but it works. And I'm pretty sure it's corroborated by the books, but don't quote me on that. Also happy they clarified FNAF 4 took place in 1983. I mean, they wouldn't have had to clarify it if they didn't make it confusing in the first place, but thanks anyway, I guess. Now, Purple Guy having this whole family setup that plays into his criminal acts. No, that's lame. I think it was a lot better when Purple Guy was a killer who was both calculated enough to use his job as a good enough front for murder to never be found, while also making enough slip-ups to directly contribute to his fate. Forthcoming enough to lure kids into a completely unmonitored room only for employees to kill them, while still letting the puppet give those souls life, which led to his spring trappening. I like the idea of Purple Guy being this entity, hiding in the shadows, bringing death in his wake, while still being clearly defeatable. Expanding on his connections and family life, ironically while making him more fleshed out, makes him less interesting to me. Honestly, something as small as calling him Afton instead of Purple Guy is a little annoying to me. Anyway, getting into the secret room places you in a more FNAF-esque setting, with a boss fight against this new character, Ennard. I think Ennard's pretty cool, and I like how they build up to him by having the mask in the main room suddenly disappear. He's supposed to be an amalgamation of all the Funtime souls in one entity, which I think is a really rad concept. I just wish his design was a bit more than the back of my TV. Also, his boss fight has pretty good music as well. I didn't know where to fit that in, but yeah, it's good. You get access to the extras menu after clearing everything in the game out, as per usual, but since this game doesn't have gameplay that would allow for cheats, we instead get more behind-the-scenes stuff as compensation, which honestly is more interesting to me. Like, why if I beat the game normally would I play the game again but easier? This is random, but it kinda reminds me of in the Pokemon Gen 5 sequels where you got easy mode after beating White 2, which is probably one of the most worthless unlockables in a video game, so I much prefer more of these making-of pictures. But that's not all, cause guess who's back, bitches? It's been since FNAF 2, but Custom Night is finally back. And this is probably the worst one. Look, we got the challenges coming back from 2, very nice, but for some reason it's broken down into difficulties from easy to very hard, which I don't get the point of, since to complete it fully you need to beat it on very hard, so just make that the default. Next, the main problem, the characters, which range from complete filler, rehashes, pointless, and a couple of good ideas. Let's start with filler, cause good god. Yendo, where was he in this game? A recolored bonbon named Bonnet. Lulbit, huh? Lulbit. Oh yeah, cause bringing back Mendo was gonna draw a line. Were we that strapped for characters, guys? Why are the Biddy Babs here, but Baby isn't? She was supposed to be the main antagonist. Despite being the most hyped up part of the game, you literally only see her in the game in that one parts and service section on Night 5. Once. Like, yeah, sure, you hear from her from time to time, but you never even have an actual run-in with her. For a main antagonist, she doesn't even get a jump scare. What in the fuck is an Electrobab? And they didn't even try with this one. Mini-Rena 2, everyone's favorite FNAF character. This whole thing takes place in the same secret room from the boss fight. Where is Ennard? Here's my mock-up of an improved character roster. Yes, I put up Hand Unit there because I think he'd fill a similar role to Phone Guy in Ultimate Custom Night, and because he's definitely a larger part of the game than Mr. Yendo over here. I begrudgingly left Lulbig and Bonnet in just because I think they have the best mechanics. Bon can't fill Bonnet's role because she's attached to Freddy, and I think it's funny that any character survived FNAF World. Next, let's go through the rehashes. Funtime Foxy is Foxy from FNAF 1, and Yendo copies Golden Freddy. Moving on. Next, the pointless characters who also, funnily enough, rehash each other. Mini-Ringas mess with the oxygen supply in the room and you shock them to get rid of them, but the oxygen drains so slowly you'll never die from it. Also, I didn't realize this, but in between writing the script and recording this audio, I played a little more of the game, and none of the other characters interact with the oxygen mechanic, which really makes me realize that the oxygen mechanic in the first place is only even in the game just to give the Mini-Ringas something to do. The Electrobabs at least pose more of a threat because they drain your power, which you are already struggling with since power is a hot commodity in this game. Finally, there's the few good ideas. They're all original and work well. Funtime Freddy sends Bong Bong after you from the hallway he's on, but sometimes he'll say a specific audio cue meant to fake you out, and Bong will come from the opposite door. Balora's music will come from the door you need to close, and you usually need to react fast. Bonnet makes you boop her nose when she's going across the room to make her go away, and if she gets to the other side, she kills you. And Lolbit appears on the TVs, and if you leave them alone for too long, you'll be disrupted, and you need a type of LOL on your keyboard to fix it. They're good, but it's not enough to fix an otherwise bloated game mode that is just so overwhelming and unmemorable that I hear hardly anyone mention the custom night from this game. Overwhelming? Underwhelming. Damn it. Yeah, it's overwhelming how bad this game is. Fuck it, we're leaving that in. Anyway, each time you beat a challenge, you get a cutscene of this dude struggling along like he owns the place. After beating a few, though, his flesh starts to rot, and after the second to last one, he completely turns purple and barfs out some mechanical stuff, which he thinks is weak, so he gets back up. So, this is Purple Guy, right? Wrong, stupid, buffoonish. This is his son, Michael Afton, aka Foxy's biggest fan. He's also who we play as in Sister Location, who gets scooped out, has Ennard put in him, and whose outline looks like Rick Astley. This here strikes me as similar to the 1983 thing, a detail that just confuses people for no reason and could have easily been clarified, but because they didn't for some reason, we had a bunch of people wondering which character this is supposed to be. Like, he was turning green in the cutscene, he could have stayed with his flesh rotting to green, but nope, purple, so now we immediately associate him with the Purple Guy. The explanation the community gives is that Purple Guy is only purple because he's in the shadows and Michael is literally purple from his flesh rotting, which hats off to them because that's the only way to make sense of this. The final cutscene is Michael talking about how the Fun Times thought he was his father and is why they tried to kill him, and that he's gonna go find dear old dad. But then Springtrap pops up for no reason, which spawned a whole debate on if Michael is Springtrap, which all could have been avoided if we didn't see Springtrap here. Also, according to Funko, this isn't actually Springtrap, but a new character called Dark Springtrap. I want to go home. Ay, this game. You know, since this is the end, let's take a recap on everything. FNAF 4 is where things really started to spiral with some plot stuff I'm not cool with, but I thought the gameplay loop was interesting and could be fun once you pushed past the difficulty and got into a rhythm. It still ranks below the previous 3 games, but I'm fine with it. FNAF World is a game that is the definition of nothing. It's so simple it barely requires a brain to play, damn near beats itself. Its existence raises more questions than answers, which is only strengthened by the reaction to FNAF World telling Scott that he needed to respect his audience more, which was also in the interview, by the way. But at the same time, it affects literally nothing in the larger series, so I can't hate it that much. I'm just sort of ambivalent towards it, I guess. Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location. While FNAF 4 had a plot that was constantly moving in the right and wrong directions at the same time, Sister Location does too many things at once, neither of which I think advance the series in a good direction. This, more than any game, is where I would place the downfall of FNAF's story into near incoherent insanity. While FNAF 4 had some things I enjoyed in its plot, like the story of this kid and especially the demonstration of the bite, Sister Location only has a few small things that I enjoy that barely matter in the grand scheme of things. And the things I don't like embody everything I dislike about the direction FNAF stories would later take. Coupled with gameplay that has exactly one part I enjoy surrounded by areas I either feel nothing towards or completely hate, Sister Location is a game I could not see myself returning to for a very long time, if at all. Honestly, if I wasn't playing this game for a video, I probably would have tapped out on night 3 or 4, and even then I couldn't stomach getting through night 5. Bit of a dour note to end the video on, but that's how these things go sometimes, unfortunately. I've got some other videos coming up the pipeline, but next time we return to FNAF, it'll be with Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night. Yeah, only 2 games next time. Did you see how long this video was? With that, I hope you enjoyed the video, take care, and I will see you all later.